Have you ever reached a moment where your plans failed, your strength ran out, and all you had left was trust? That's the exact place where God begins to show you that you were never meant to carry it alone. Pause for impact, because sometimes life doesn't break you to destroy you. It breaks you to redirect you. Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every life when control becomes an illusion, when effort is not enough, when doors don't open no matter how hard you knock. And in those moments, you are faced with a divine invitation not to panic, not to quit, but to trust God completely. Trust is not easy when the future is unclear. Trust is not simple when the waiting is long. But it is in the waiting, in the silence, in the uncertainty where God is doing his deepest work. Today's message is simple yet powerful. Trust God to take care of you, not partially, not conditionally, fully. Because when God is your source, lack is only temporary and delay is never denial. There are moments in life when everything around you starts to feel like it is slipping through your hands. You plan carefully, you work hard, you try to stay disciplined, but still things begin to fall apart in ways you never expected. A job you thought was secure suddenly ends. A relationship you believed would last forever breaks without warning. A health report shakes your confidence. A financial situation becomes heavier than your strength. And in those moments, something deep inside you begins to whisper, I am losing control of my life. But here is the truth that most people only understand after they have walked through fire. Just because you feel out of control does not mean your life is out of control. There is a higher hand still guiding what your eyes cannot fully understand. There is a wisdom working behind the scenes that is not dependent on your awareness, your planning, or even your ability to fix things. Life may feel scattered, but it is not abandoned. It may feel confusing, but it is not meaningless. Think about a moment when you were traveling somewhere important and suddenly the route changed. Maybe the road you normally take was closed, or there was unexpected traffic. At that moment, frustration rises. You think you are delayed. You think something is going wrong. But later you discover that an accident happened on your usual route, or a danger was avoided simply because you were redirected. What felt like disruption was actually protection. What felt like delay was actually direction. Life works in the same way. Sometimes doors close not because you are unwanted, but because you are being protected from something you cannot yet see. Sometimes people walk away not because you are not valuable, but because your journey is meant to continue without them. Sometimes plans collapse not because you are failing, but because something greater is being built in a direction you never considered. A student may fail an exam and feel like everything is over, only to realize later that the failure pushed them into a field they were truly meant for. A person may lose a job and feel hopeless, only to discover that the loss forced them to start something that eventually became their greatest success. A dream may be delayed so many times that frustration becomes normal, but later that same dream arrives with stronger foundations and better timing than expected. Control is something human beings love because it gives the illusion of safety. We like to believe that if we plan enough, think enough, and prepare enough, nothing will go wrong. But life has a way of reminding us that not everything is within our hands. And that realization, though painful, is also freeing. Because when you stop trying to control everything, you start noticing the strength that has been carrying you all along. There is a quiet truth many only recognize in hindsight. The moments you thought would break you actually built you. The seasons you thought were punishment were actually preparation. The situations that made you question everything were the same situations that shaped your strength, your patience, and your character. Growth rarely feels comfortable while it is happening. It often feels like confusion, pressure, and uncertainty. Imagine a potter shaping clay. The clay does not understand why it is being pressed, stretched, or reshaped. If it could feel, it might think it is being destroyed. But the potter sees something entirely different. The pressure is not destruction, it is design. The shaping is not harm, it is purpose. In the same way, even when life feels like pressure, there can still be purpose in what you are going through. There will be days when you wake up and nothing makes sense. You did everything right, but things still went wrong. You gave your best, but results did not match your effort. You stayed faithful, but answers did not arrive. In those moments, the strongest thing you can do is not to panic, not to rush, not to force outcomes, but to trust that there is a greater order beyond what you can currently see. Because life is not only what happens in front of you, it is also what is being arranged behind the scenes. And sometimes what feels like loss is actually alignment. What feels like silence is actually preparation. What feels like delay is actually timing being perfected. So even when your hands feel empty, your path feels unclear, and your strength feels limited, remember this: being out of control does not mean being out of care. You are still being guided. You are still being positioned. And you are still moving towards something that is not random, not forgotten, and not abandoned. And one day, when you look back at everything that once confused you, you will realize it was never out of control. It was simply being led in a way you could not yet understand. There is a quiet battle that every human being fights every single day, and most people never speak about it out loud. It is the battle between worry and trust. Worry comes naturally because it feeds on what you can see, what you can feel, and what you fear might go wrong. Trust, on the other hand, is deeper. It does not depend on what is visible. It depends on what is believed in the unseen. And this is where life becomes powerful. Your worry will never change your situation, but your trust will always change your spirit. Think about a person sitting late at night, staring at the ceiling, overthinking everything. Bills are due. The job situation is unstable. A relationship feels uncertain. Health concerns are rising. And in that silence, the mind begins to create endless scenarios, most of them negative, most of them imagined, and all of them heavy. Worry has a way of taking tomorrow's problems and placing them on today's shoulders. And suddenly a person who only has one real moment to live the present starts carrying 10 future burdens that may never even happen. But here is what is powerful to understand. Worry has never solved a single problem. Not one. Worry cannot pay a bill. Worry cannot heal a body. Worry cannot open a closed door. Worry only steals strength. It weakens your thoughts, drains your energy, and disturbs your peace. You could spend hours worrying and still end up in the exact same situation, except now you are more tired, more anxious, and more discouraged than before. Now compare that with trust. Trust does not deny that problems exist. Trust simply refuses to let problems take control of the mind. Trust says, I may not see the answer right now, but I refuse to destroy my peace because of uncertainty. And that shift, even if it feels small, changes everything inside a person. Imagine a mother waiting for her child to return home late at night. If she chooses worry, every passing minute feels like danger. Her heart races, her mind imagines accidents, and her peace disappears completely. But if she chooses trust, she still cares, she still waits, but her heart remains steady. She believes the child will arrive safely. The situation has not changed, but her inner world has completely changed. Or think about a young person waiting for a job result. One person spends days refreshing emails, constantly anxious, unable to sleep properly, imagining rejection before it even arrives. Another person also waits, but continues living, continues preparing, continues believing that whatever is meant for them will arrive at the right time. Both are in the same situation. Externally, but internally, they are living in two completely different worlds, one in fear, the other in peace. This is the real power of trust. It does not always change what is happening outside immediately, but it always changes what is happening inside. And sometimes the strength you gain internally becomes the very reason you are able to survive externally. There are people who carry problems that never leave their lives, yet they still smile, still move forward, still function with strength. How? It is not because their situation is easy. It is because their spirit is not broken by worry. Trust has given them a foundation that worry could never destroy. Even in nature, you can see this principle. A farmer does not stand in the field every day digging up seeds to see if they are growing. If he did that, nothing would ever grow. He plants, he waters, and then he waits with trust in the process. If he replaced trust with worry, he would destroy his own harvest by constantly interfering with it. Growth requires patience, and patience is impossible without trust. Life works the same way. There are things you cannot rush. There are answers you cannot force. There are doors you cannot open with anxiety. The more you worry, the more you disturb your own peace. But the moment you shift into trust, something powerful happens inside you. You regain your breath, you regain your clarity, and you regain your strength to continue. And here is a truth many people only understand. Later in life, most of what they worried about never even happened. They suffered twice, once in imagination and once in reality, if it ever came at all. Worry is expensive. It costs peace, joy, sleep, and focus. And the return on that investment is almost always nothing. Trust, however, is different. Trust gives you stability even in uncertainty. It allows you to walk through storms without collapsing internally. It does not promise that life will always be easy, but it promises that you will not be destroyed by what you cannot control. So when life feels heavy, when answers are delayed, when uncertainty rises, remember this deeply. Worry will only exhaust you, but trust will strengthen you. The situation may still be there, but your spirit will not be broken by it. And sometimes that inner strength is the very thing that carries you through until everything begins to make sense again. There are seasons in life when waiting feels like silence and silence feels like rejection. You pray, you plan, you work, you try your best to move forward, yet nothing seems to open. Doors remain closed. Opportunities seem delayed. Answers feel distant. And in that space, the human mind often jumps to the conclusion that nothing is happening for me. But what we often misunderstand is this. Delay is not rejection. It is preparation happening in disguise. Life has a way of making us believe that timing is always immediate. We want results when we want them. We want answers when we ask. We want progress as soon as effort is made. But real life does not always operate on human urgency. There is a deeper rhythm at work, one that does not rush but always arrives at the right moment. And sometimes what feels like delay is actually life protecting you from something you are not yet ready to handle, or positioning you for something far greater than what you originally asked for. Think about a student who studies for an exam and does not immediately see success. They may fail once, maybe twice. At that moment, it feels like everything is against them. They begin to question their ability, their future, their worth. But later, that same student often realizes that those delays were not denial, they were development. The extra time forced them to build discipline, improve understanding, and strengthen their foundation. When success finally arrives, it is not fragile. It is stable because it was built through process, not instant reward. Or consider a person applying for a job after. Job without success. Every rejection feels like a closed door. Every "we regret to inform you" message feels like disappointment repeating itself. But later, that same person may land a position that is better than everything they previously applied for. Better environment, better growth, better alignment with their skills. And suddenly what looked like delay becomes clear. Those earlier rejections were not blocks, they were redirections. Even in relationships, this truth becomes visible. Sometimes people enter and leave your life in seasons you don't understand. You meet someone and feel a strong connection, but circumstances don't allow it to continue. At that moment, it feels like loss. But later in life, you realize that timing mattered more than emotion. If that situation had continued, it might have led to pain, distraction, or misalignment. What felt like delay or separation was actually protection, guiding you toward emotional maturity and better alignment. Nature itself teaches this principle with perfect clarity. A seed planted in the soil does not break through the ground immediately. Beneath the surface, where no one can see, something is happening. Roots are forming. Strength is building. Stability is being created in darkness before visibility ever arrives. If that seed tried to rush its growth above the ground without roots, it would collapse the moment pressure came. The delay beneath the soil is not wasted time, it is survival preparation. Human beings often struggle with the unseen part of their journey. We celebrate visible success but forget invisible development. We admire the breakthrough but ignore the process that made it possible. Yet the truth is simple. What is delayed is often being strengthened. What is slow is often being secured. What is hidden is often being protected. There are moments when you feel like everyone else is moving ahead while you are stuck in place. Others seem to be achieving faster, growing quicker, and reaching milestones before you. But life is not a race where everyone runs the same path at the same speed. Some journeys require detours. Some paths require waiting rooms. Some destinies require preparation that cannot be rushed. And comparison in those moments only steals peace without adding progress. Think about construction. When a strong building is being built, no one celebrates the deep foundation work. It is messy, slow, and invisible. But without that foundation, the entire structure would collapse under pressure. The delay in building below ground is what allows strength above ground. In the same way, your life may be in a foundation season right now where nothing looks impressive, but everything is being made stable. Even emotionally, delay teaches strength. When answers don't come quickly, patience is developed. When doors don't open immediately, resilience is formed. When progress is slow, endurance grows. These are qualities that cannot be learned in instant success. They are formed in waiting seasons. And ironically, the very delay you complain about is often building the strength you will need for what is coming next. There is also a deeper truth. Timing protects purpose. If certain things arrived too early, they would overwhelm you. If certain opportunities came without preparation, they would break you instead of bless you. Delay ensures that when the moment finally arrives, you are not just present, you are ready. So even when life feels paused, even when progress feels invisible, even when answers feel slow, understand this deeply. Delay is not denial. It is development happening quietly, carefully, and intentionally. And when the right moment comes, you will not see wasted time, you will see perfect timing. There are moments in life when you look around and realize that what you are walking through does not look like what you expected. You prayed for one direction, but life seems to be taking you through another. You expected comfort, but you are facing pressure. You expected clarity, but you are surrounded by confusion. And in those moments, it is easy to believe that something has gone wrong. But the deeper truth is this: what God has for you cannot be blocked by people, circumstances, or opposition. Nothing external has the authority to cancel what has been designed for your life. Many people spend their energy fearing opposition. They worry about competitors, about rejection, about closed doors, about people who misunderstand them or underestimate them. But what they don't realize is that no human being holds the final say over their destiny. People can delay opportunities. They can misunderstand your journey. They can even stand against you, but they cannot cancel what is meant for you. There is a difference between delay and denial, and opposition can only create delay, never denial of purpose. Think about the life of a person who applies for a job and gets rejected multiple times. Each rejection feels personal. Each no feels like a door shutting forever. But later, that same person may end up in a position that was never even on their original list: better pay, better environment, better growth. When they look back, they realize something powerful. Every rejection was actually protection, and every closed door was quietly guiding them towards something better. No company that rejected them could stop their destiny. In fact, those rejections were part of directing it. Or think about someone who starts a business and faces constant setbacks. Suppliers fail, customers leave, finances get tight. People may even doubt their vision. But if that vision is truly aligned with purpose, no setback has the final authority to erase it. Many of the world's strongest success stories are built on repeated failure, rejection, and resistance. The resistance did not stop them, it refined them. It tested their commitment. It exposed their strength. And eventually, what was once difficult became undeniable success. Even in personal life, this truth becomes clear. There are relationships that face opposition from families, society, or circumstances. Sometimes people are told that something will never work, that doors will never open, that paths will never align. Yet time and life have a way of proving that what is truly meant cannot be easily erased. Either it matures into something stronger or it transforms into a lesson that leads to something better. But in every case, external voices never hold the final authority over destiny. Nature itself also reflects this principle in powerful ways. A river does not stop flowing just because rocks are placed in its path. It finds a way around them. It adjusts, it bends, it continues forward. The presence of obstacles does not cancel its direction. It simply proves its persistence. In the same way, when something is truly meant for you, obstacles may appear, but they cannot erase the direction you are meant to go. There is also something important to understand about opposition. Sometimes it is not there to stop you, but to strengthen you. Pressure reveals what comfort hides. Challenges build what ease cannot. Resistance develops endurance. And what feels like something standing against you may actually be shaping the strength you need to carry what is coming next. Without resistance, growth becomes weak. Without challenges, progress becomes fragile. Think about a person training their body at the gym. If there is no weight, there is no strength being built. The resistance of the weight is what creates muscle. If life had no resistance at all, there would be no development of emotional strength, patience, or resilience. So even opposition has a role, but not the role of stopping you. Its role is shaping you. There are also moments when people misunderstand your journey. They may doubt your potential, question your decisions, or underestimate your ability. But misunderstanding does not equal limitation. Just because someone cannot see what is ahead for you does not mean it does not exist. People often judge based on what is visible in the present, but destiny is not limited to present visibility. What is unseen today can become undeniable tomorrow. And this is where inner confidence becomes important, not arrogance, but quiet confidence rooted in purpose. When you know that your life is guided by something greater than opinion, rejection loses its power. When you understand that your direction is not dependent on approval, opposition loses its weight. You stop living reactively and start living purposefully. Even in moments when everything seems blocked, there is a deeper truth working silently. If something is meant for you, it will find its way to you. Not because everything will be easy, but because alignment is stronger than resistance. Doors that are meant to open will eventually open. Paths that are meant to unfold will eventually unfold. And what is yours will not need force, it will require timing, preparation, and persistence. So when life feels like it is pushing back, when people doubt your journey, when circumstances seem to resist your progress, remember this deeply. Nothing external has the final authority over what is meant for your life. Opposition may appear, delays may happen, challenges may rise, but destiny does not cancel itself because of difficulty. It continues, it adjusts, and it arrives in its appointed time. There is a quiet truth that most people only learn after going through enough seasons of struggle. What you are focused on determines how you experience your life. Fear is one of the strongest forces that can shape a person's thinking, decisions, and even their future. When fear takes control, it does not just stay in the mind, it spreads into actions, relationships, opportunities, and confidence. Fear makes small problems look large, and it makes temporary situations feel permanent. It shifts attention away from possibilities and locks the mind inside limitations that may not even exist in reality. Think about a person walking alone at night in a quiet street. Every small sound suddenly feels suspicious. A moving shadow becomes a potential threat. Even harmless things appear dangerous because fear is interpreting everything through anxiety. But when the same person is walking in daylight with calmness, the same street feels completely different. The environment has not changed, but perception has. This is the power of focus. Fear changes how you see reality, not reality itself. In daily life, fear often shows up in subtle ways. A student preparing for exams may start thinking, what if I fail? Instead of focusing on preparation. That thought alone begins to weaken confidence. Even if they know the subject, fear creates doubt. It shifts attention from study to stress. Another person may be preparing for an interview, but keeps thinking about rejection instead of preparation. Fear creates imagined outcomes that steal energy from real action. But when focus shifts away from fear, something powerful happens. Clarity returns. Strength returns. Confidence begins to rebuild. The same student who once panicked can begin to study with focus. The same candidate who feared rejection can begin to prepare with confidence. Nothing external changed, but internal direction changed everything. Fear also has a way of making people hesitate at critical moments in life. Opportunities often come quietly. A chance to start something new. A chance to speak up. A chance to take a risk. But fear whispers, what if it fails? What if you are not enough? What if people judge you? And because of those thoughts, many people miss moments that could have changed their lives. Not because they were incapable, but because fear took control of their attention. Think about a person who wants to start a small business. They may have the idea, the passion, even some resources. But fear begins to ask questions. What if I lose money? What if it doesn't work? What if people don't support me? And slowly, hesitation replaces action. Months pass, years pass, and the idea they could have grown into something meaningful remains only a thought. Fear did not stop the opportunity, it stopped the attempt. On the other hand, people who learn to move beyond fear often discover something surprising. Most of what they were afraid of never actually happens. The mind builds scenarios that feel real but are not always true. Fear exaggerates risk and minimizes possibility. It creates mental walls that feel solid but are actually imagined. Even in relationships, fear plays a strong role. Fear of rejection stops people from expressing themselves. Fear of judgment stops people from being authentic. Fear of loss makes people hold back love, honesty, or communication. But when fear is reduced, relationships often become more genuine, more open, and more meaningful. People connect better when they are not controlled by constant worry. Fear also affects personal growth. A person who is afraid of failure avoids challenges. But growth never comes from avoidance, it comes from engagement. Every skill learned, every achievement gained, every level of success reached required stepping into something uncertain. Confidence is not built by avoiding fear, it is built by moving through it. Think about a person learning to ride a bicycle for the first time. There is fear of falling. There is hesitation. But if they never try because of fear, they will never learn. The only way forward is to try, to fall, to adjust, and to try again. Eventually, balance comes, not because fear disappeared completely, but because action overcame hesitation. The deeper truth is this: fear is not always a warning, it is often a barrier. It tries to protect you, but sometimes it also prevents you from growing. Discernment is needed to know the difference between real danger and imagined limitation. Not every fear should be obeyed. Some fears are signals to be cautious, but many fears are simply signals to stay stuck. When people begin to shift their attention away from fear and toward possibility, life begins to change. Decisions become clearer. Steps become bolder. Opportunities feel more reachable. It does not mean fear disappears completely, but it no longer controls direction. Instead of asking, what if I fail? The question becomes, what if this works? And that shift changes everything. Because fear will always try to speak, but focus decides what you listen to. There are moments in life when you feel like you are walking through things alone, even when people are around you. You smile in public, you talk, you function, but inside there is a quiet question that keeps rising again and again. Why do I feel like this? And in those moments, one of the deepest truths a person can learn is this: no matter how isolated you feel, you are never truly abandoned. Silence is not absence. Distance is not disconnection. And being unseen does not mean being uncared for. Think about a person sitting in a room late at night. Everyone else is asleep. The world outside is quiet. There are no messages coming in, no calls, no noise of activity. In that silence, the mind often starts to feel heavy. Thoughts become louder than reality. Loneliness begins to whisper that no one understands, no one notices, no one cares. But that feeling, as real as it seems in the moment, is not always the truth. It is often the emotional weight of isolation, not the reality of existence. In daily life, many people go through phases where they feel emotionally distant from others. A student may feel overwhelmed with pressure, thinking no one understands the stress they carry. A working person may feel exhausted, thinking no one sees the effort behind their long hours. A parent may feel drained, believing their sacrifices are unnoticed. A young person may feel lost, thinking they are walking without guidance. But in all these situations, life continues to provide support in ways that are not always obvious. Sometimes support does not come in dramatic forms. It comes in small, quiet ways. A simple conversation that lifts your mood. A random message from someone at the right time. A moment of rest that refreshes your mind. Even the ability to wake up each morning and try again is itself a form of unseen strength being given. Many times, what people interpret as abandonment is actually a phase of strengthening where answers are not loud but are still forming. Think about a person going through financial difficulty. They may feel like everything is falling apart. Bills are increasing, income feels unstable, and pressure builds from every direction. In that moment, it is easy to feel alone. But when they look back later, they often realize that during that same period, unexpected help appeared, a delay in payment that prevented a loss, a small opportunity that opened a new door, or a person who stepped in at the right time. What felt like silence was actually support working in unseen ways. Even in nature, there is a lesson hidden here. A tree does not grow visibly every second. Much of its growth happens underground, where roots are strengthening, spreading, and preparing for stability. If the tree judged its progress only by what it could see above the soil, it might feel stuck. But beneath the surface, something powerful is happening that ensures survival and strength in the future. In the same way, life often works in layers that are not immediately visible. There are also emotional seasons where people feel disconnected from others they once felt close to. Distance, misunderstandings, or changes in life circumstances can create emotional gaps. In those moments, it may feel like relationships are fading or support is disappearing. But time has a way of revealing that not every distance is permanent and not every silence is rejection. Sometimes people are simply in their own growth phases too, learning, evolving, and preparing to reconnect in stronger ways. Even when human support feels distant, personal strength often begins to develop in those very moments. People discover resilience they did not know they had. They learn how to stand again after falling. They find courage in places they never explored before. And while it may not feel comfortable, these seasons often shape the strongest parts of a person's character. Think about someone learning to swim. At first, the water feels unfamiliar and even frightening. If they panic, they feel like they are sinking. But as they learn to relax and trust the process, they begin to float. The water that once felt overwhelming becomes the same force that supports them. In the same way, life situations that initially feel heavy often become the very experiences that teach strength and balance. There is also something deeply important to understand. Feelings are real, but they are not always final truth. Feeling alone does not always mean you are alone. Feeling unsupported does not always mean you are unsupported. Emotions reflect a moment, not the entirety of reality. And when people begin to separate emotion from truth, clarity begins to return. Even in moments of silence, growth is still happening. Even in moments of distance, guidance is still present. Even when answers are not immediate, direction is still forming. Life does not stop caring just because it does not always respond in the way or timing we expect. So when you find yourself in those quiet moments where everything feels distant, remember this deeply. You are not as alone as your emotions may suggest. Support often exists in ways that are not loud, not visible, and not immediate, but it is still present. And sometimes The very moments that feel like silence are actually the moments where life is building strength within you that you will later recognize as the reason you made it through. There are moments in life when everything feels uncertain, and yet you are still expected to move forward. You do not always have clarity. You do not always have answers. You do not always have confirmation that things will work out. But life does not wait for perfect conditions before it asks you to take the next step. And in those moments, one of the most powerful truths a person can hold on to is this: when you cannot see the full path ahead, you still have to take the next step in faith. Think about walking in a dark room. You do not see the entire space. You cannot see what is in the corners or how far the room extends. But you still move forward by taking one step at a time. You trust that the floor will be there when your foot moves. You trust that you will not fall into nothingness. You do not see the whole journey, you only see enough for the next movement. Life often works in the same way. It does not reveal everything at once. It reveals enough for you to continue, not enough for you to control everything. In daily life, this shows up in many forms. A person starting a new career may not know how it will unfold 5 years later. A student choosing a field of study may not fully understand where it will lead. Someone starting a new relationship may not know what the future holds. If people waited for full certainty before acting, very few things in life would ever begin. Progress is built on steps taken without complete visibility, but with enough trust to continue. There is a quiet pressure in the human mind to want everything figured out. Before moving, people want guarantees. They want assurance that every decision will be correct. But life rarely offers guarantees. Instead, it offers direction, and direction becomes clearer only when movement begins. Standing still waiting for full clarity often delays growth, while stepping forward often creates the clarity that was missing. Think about someone learning to drive at night. At first, they can only see a short distance ahead because of the headlights. They do not see the entire road stretching far into the distance, but they do not stop driving because of that. They trust that as they move forward, more of the road will become visible. If they refuse to move until they could see the entire journey, they would never leave the starting point. Life requires the same trust in limited visibility. Even in personal challenges, this principle becomes clear. A person going through a difficult phase may not understand why they are in that situation. They may not see how things will improve. But if they choose to take small steps forward, wake up, try again, make one decision at a time, they slowly begin to move out of confusion into direction. Not everything changes instantly, but movement itself creates momentum. There are also moments when opportunities appear, but fear of the unknown holds people back. A job in a new city, a chance to start something different, a decision that requires change. The mind often says, what if it doesn't work? But what if it does? Many opportunities are missed not because they were impossible, but because the full outcome was not visible in advance. Yet every meaningful achievement in life began without complete clarity, only with willingness to take the next step. Think about a person crossing a bridge in fog. They cannot see the entire bridge from start to finish. Visibility is limited, but step by step they continue walking. They trust the structure beneath them even when their eyes cannot confirm everything ahead. In the same way, life does not always allow you to see the entire bridge of your journey. You only see enough to continue walking, not enough to stop completely. Even emotionally, this truth is powerful. There are situations where people feel confused about relationships, decisions, or direction in life. Waiting for all emotions to settle before acting often keeps them stuck. But when they take small, thoughtful steps forward, clarity often begins to develop over time. Action brings understanding that hesitation cannot provide. One of the most important things to understand is that uncertainty is not a sign of failure. It is a normal part of any meaningful journey. If everything were fully known in advance, there would be no growth, no learning, and no development of strength. Uncertainty forces people to rely not just on what they see, but on what they believe is possible. Even nature reflects this principle. A plant does not grow overnight. It moves upward gradually, responding to light, soil, and time. It does not rush the entire process. It takes each stage as it comes. Roots first, then stem, then leaves. Each phase prepares for the next. If the plant tried to see its entire future at once, it would never grow at all. So when life feels unclear, when the path ahead is not fully visible, and when answers have not yet arrived, remember this deeply. You are not required to see the entire journey to move forward. You are only required to take the next step. And sometimes that next step is all that is needed for the next door to open, the next opportunity to appear, and the next level of understanding to begin. There are seasons in life when everything you are waiting for feels delayed. Everything you are working for feels distant, and everything you are believing for feels invisible. And in those moments, the human heart quietly begins to question, will it ever happen? But one of the deepest truths that carries people through such seasons is this: what is meant for you cannot be stopped by time, people, or circumstance. It may be delayed, it may be tested, it may be shaped through struggle, but it cannot be erased. Think about a river flowing toward the ocean. On its way, it may face rocks, narrow paths, uneven ground, and even temporary blocks. But the river does not stop being a river. It does not lose its direction. It does not forget its destination. It finds a way around, over, or through until it reaches where it is meant to go. In the same way, when something is truly aligned with your purpose, life may challenge it, but it cannot completely stop it. In daily life, this truth becomes visible in many forms. A person may apply for opportunities again and again and face rejection each time. On the surface, it feels like closed doors. But later, that same person often discovers that those rejections were not the end, they were redirection. What was meant for them did not disappear, it simply waited for the right timing, the right environment, and the right preparation. Think about a student who dreams of achieving something big but struggles in the beginning. They may fail once, maybe even multiple times. At that moment, it feels like their dream is slipping away. But many of the strongest success stories in life are built exactly in